All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 19th, 2026 Victor Conservation Board meeting. Myself, Tim Norman, Matt Madison, and Pat Coleman. Couple items on the agenda tonight. First one, Nova Rise preliminary. Applicant is proposing 74 lot, 73 unit cluster subdivision on a total of 158.2 acres over 3 parcels. So the applicant is here, and if we'd like to get an overview of your project, and certainly we'll have some questions. Before we do that, just want to give an overview of the Conservation Board and what we do. So we're an advisory board to the planning board. And we'll review projects as they relate to water usage, erosion, steep slopes, any unique geological features, tree removal, that sort of thing. So we'll give any comments up to the planning board, and that they'll factor that into their overall decision on the project. So, but if Ralph, you would give us an overview of the project. We have a lot of material that we've reviewed, that we're somewhat familiar, but it's always good to hear from you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
General Rover?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good evening. My name is Cole Papasergi. I'm with Marathon Engineering. These two guys introduce themselves.
Bill Reno with Morale Builders.
Nova Rise is, as stated, a 74 lot, but 73 buildable lot subdivision, located on 3 parcels. And you can see there, property 1, property 2, and property 3. All the development is at northwest, north or west of Brownsville Road there, and to the south. The other 3 parcels we are using for density credits, where we will be placing conservation easements to hit a 50% threshold of open space. We're actually exceeding that threshold. And I have some renderings here that helps the board visualize up against the distant vegetation. It's
Both of those. Both. Awesome, thank you.
And you'll notice on the larger rendering that the conservation easement is hatched. And that conservation easement is primarily on existing woodlots as a active measure for those. There's also wetlands west of the development where the lots are. That's a state wetland with a 100-foot buffer. We have a delineation for that. And there's also floodplains located east of Brownsville Road, but no development is occurring there. There is the existing lot, which is one of the 73 that we're including. There's an existing home on the east side of Brownsville Road at the bottom right. Bottom left.
Is that 950 Brownsville, that Kent E?
Yes,
Yeah,
950.
950.
Correct. I'm sorry, that's an out parcel that Donna Kika at 973 lived at. That's her son's. 50.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with the development.
So, yeah.
I'm sure.
The house is actually right there. The existing. That was part
Oh,
of
across the road.
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Yep.
So that is lot 1 of this development. The current lands is all one, so it's one property today on the left side there. So lot 1 is going to stay that way, and it'll have the conservation easement to the west of Brownsville Road as part of lot 1, as well as the east. The 74th lot is the open space lot. That is the wetlands lot. Far
Out there with
the top.
Yeah. Okay.
that will not be buildable lot, that is just part of the buffer to the homes. That. Is there anything that I think I missed?
No, perfect. I mean, we're just, very excited. We've watched this, property for 12 or 13 years now. I have, emails back to 2011, 2012 with Donna going back and forth. And, just very excited about the parcel. We felt that we could develop the homes almost exclusively in the farm area and preserve, trees and open space for conservation and enjoyment, with, walking trails. Both, Rich and I last week, with the Genesee Land Trust, and we walked all that back there, all the way back to the creek. And it is 100 times nicer than what I anticipated. It's just absolutely beautiful back there. Really trying to take into consideration the preservation of the open space but yet still enjoy it. Victor hiking trails to try and put trails through there that minimize disturbance and maximize enjoyment, but also not at a huge cost, simple hiking trails through the space there. And at the same time consolidating the homes into one space.
I think I'll just also add, so we were in front of the planning board sketch plan. With a slightly different layout. And we've taken into consideration some of the planning board's comments, including one of which was to provide a little bit more of a buffer space and to avoid taking trees along the existing neighborhood at Azano Circle. So there's a 50-foot wide conservation strip there. I see that etched on the plan that's up on the board there. And we're avoiding taking any of those substantial trees down in that area. And like Bill said, we are conservation boards. View, we're staying out of the steep slopes that is primarily between the development and Brownsville Road, and staying out of the wetlands and in floodplains, and staying within that farmland are the best impact.
We mirrored it after our neighborhood in Honey Eye Falls called Wolfsburger Park. And we've been exceptionally successful there, filling a need. New York State is underbuilt currently with housing. And we're finding that the single family home, we obviously built a few townhomes in Victor, Pittsford, Canandaigua, Honey Eye Falls. But we know there's a need because of the minimal inventory. So we're trying to fill that need. And do it with smart growth as well. Listen to the planning board, and they we're at 65-foot wide lots and some 80-foot wide, so we've come back with 75-foot wide on almost all of them. They were concerned about some corner lots. We've adjusted for all of that. Actually tried to take everything the board advised us on into consideration. Looking forward to showing them the differences that we made. But with the almost ridiculous cost of development now, every foot of sanitary, storm, gutter, roadway, water lines, utilities is getting so expensive. What we try to do is people don't necessarily use their side yards, or they're using their front yard, their backyard. So we've narrowed our colonials down a little bit to 35, 40-foot wide. They've been wildly successful, a beautiful model home. Located down in Honey Eye Falls. It'll be very similar to this product, probably different front elevations. But that's been wildly successful, and it's 35, 40-foot wide. We've designed it so that in this situation, we can do some side load garages, some 3-car garages, because in the 65-foot wide, we were really limited and not able to do that. The board advised us we'd like to see some differences, so we find those out so we can do some different looks and some side load garages, but still not do the traditional 100-foot wide with a 55-foot wide colonial. I think it is the future of development. I'm trying to tell it. The booklet here just kind of shows you, with Morel, we're just not dividing up the lots and putting as many homes in as possible. We're really focused on continue the brand that we've built over 3 generations and creating a culture in the neighborhood. And our Hanya Falls have a amazing group of people that have moved into that village and just enjoying it in the school system and creating a whole neighborhood with a pre-planned design, a concept, a look, a color scheme. So it's much more than just, getting as many sites in as possible. Rich and Cole have done an amazing job of creating almost privacy in almost every site. So if you look out the back of every site, it's either backing up to a tree line, to an open space. And the beauty is that the homeowners can still enjoy an in-ground pool. We don't allow storage sheds and track restrictions, so those wouldn't be in there. But if you want to play set, a patio, a deck, those type of things, hot tub, you've got plenty of space to do that in your backyard and still have the privacy that affords you. Today's homeowners, we're finding that the 20 and 30-year-olds, I'm 60 years old. Saturdays, we're cutting the grass and we're maintaining the house where people want to be hiking, they want to be out biking, they want to be skiing, all those other things. So still enjoying the backyard, but minimizing the maintenance of that. And that's what we're trying to do too. Makes sense.
So just thinking through the conservation easements, so it doesn't appear that they will be owned. I guess maybe I'll just ask, will own the land that the conservation easements are on?
Sure.
It will vary, so the properties 3 and 2 will be retained by HK Golf.
So the existing owner of the land, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And the conservation easements located on property 1, the existing home, but that will be under their ownership, and then the open space, that parcel is intended to be transferred to our HK Golf as well. They own and operate that golf course, so they're very concerned about the buffer, so that's something that they.
So the easements, if we focus just on the development where the homes are, the easements, the west with the wetlands and the buffer, and then to the east, right around the cul-de-sac, those will be owned by the golf course. Or LLC.
Yeah, you want. Let me point that
Yeah,
out.
go ahead, you-
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
up there.
right there.
So
Please.
just to clarify, Cole, so this is what is gonna be the golf course,
Yep.
right? And then this and this is still golf course, right? And then this piece and this piece, either this existing home's gonna retain that, but potentially we're working with Genesee Land Trust and taking that property, donating that to them, and then working with Victor Trails to maintain that.
Okay.
I know that's worked before in the town of Victor successfully, and we're working through that process right now. If we did have the homeowner own that property, then would be easements on there for the trails. And so the idea is with the Genesee Land Trust, it would be a public trail. If it was owned by the owner, it might just be for, I think. But we're trying to work through that.
And I'll just add, there's also a little bit of the conservation easement on lots 34, 36, and 37, right up against the Zamo Circle.
Yep.
Development. Those will be
Okay.
on those lots. Similar to how the existing development has a conservation easement.
And those have, I didn't think there was much of a tree line or brush line, and it's not substantial, but it's enough to protect and try and help the homeowners, from, they have their own property, obviously, and some have fences, some don't. But we doubled that amount so we can try and preserve any trees, brush, anything that's in between there and not get into that.
So they've got 50 feet on their side too. to the property line, and then you're adding another 50.
Yeah.
And the elevation, are you still, you're a lot higher though still, right, than those folks, or not so much than these folks that you're backing right up to?
It varies along the whole property line. Some are like the flag lots. In the back, or sorry. West side, those are a little bit higher. On the east side and go. Oh. Be the same.
What, so, like you said, you're trying to stay with farmland, right? Try not to do too much, as far as tree removal. Like I said, you can kind of see through planting, so that's kind of cool. So looks like just a little bit of the edges and up on the north end, maybe you've got to pull some trees back.
It's very limited in the amount of tree clearing as we.
Pretty much fits on what's already there, which is good. And then how much, earth movement needs to happen up there? Is that a flat spot right now?
So we're working with the grades as much as we can, so the road will mimic kind of how the natural grade of the land moves, and what that looks like is there's essentially a high spot right about where the intersection of cul-de-sac roads. The land comes up, and it stays kind of flat until it starts going down towards Brownsville. There's another high point on that road going down towards Brownsville Road. That's the highest spot of the subdivision between those two sections there.
And will the folks on the southern piece be, are those gonna be walkouts, some of those? Not that much grade or no?
There'll be walkouts near the ponds on downhill side there. Cul-de-sac will have a lot of walkouts or partial walkouts. And specific lot. Majority of all the rest of them are standard.
Soil, like, staying on the property, or you've got to bring in, take out?
Well, we have roughly balanced the site, so it you know, or export other than stone. The construction.
The two ponds or could maybe talk through that. I assume there's nothing existing, you know, but so you'll create that as far as drainage from the development.
Yep.
There's retention, detention. What?
So those are designed as wet ponds. We're finalizing the soil testing. It's our belief that based on US data, it is relatively good soil, but there's also spots of bad soil in there. As well as there's a wetland on the west side there indicating that it's not very well drained, so we're in the middle of doing some testing up there to verify those rates, and then we'll tweak to make sure it fits with the soils that we have.
You're making sure you're pulling stuff in, so nothing's running off down in Mazzano, for instance, that's not
Yes.
currently running down there.
So all our rates would be lower than currently proposed. Our peak runoff rates would be lower than existing runoff.
So lots 38 and 71 will own those wet ponds.
Yes, so that's 38 and 71 will be on their property, but we have submitted an application to be in the town drainage area. So that the town can maintain those.
Lock it in, yeah.
Just a little bit of wet down by, all the way down Brownsville.
Yes,
Are you creating that as well, or is that already
Yep.
kind of naturally?
so that would be created to help with the stormwater requirements to have a spot for all the impervious down
For a rundown?
been some issues in the past with like, lack of parking easements. So with some of these lots that, like, for example, 3637, 234, and then kind of all along that northern stretch, west side. Our folks will put a shed or a pool or something like that, so we always ask if they can be parked. Really, for the easement's sake, just so they don't run into code issues.
Yeah, we actually, that's a concern of the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
And, so I promised them, and we're willing to put it in there, that we would put a 4x4 pole on every lot. And they're willing to have it on their property by 4 poles, so that, there's no misunderstanding. Because, what happens if you don't have clear, expectations with a new home. And they start to cut grass, cut trees, ride motorcycles, and I really, we'll get it across from a sales manager standpoint. Customers will understand. I'll have them sign agreement with Toby is these people understand. They'll sign an addendum and we'll put the 4x4 post. Where that can get blurred is that's why the sign's there is the resale.
Yeah,
Sure, 20 years down the line.
And if they
Sure.
pulled it out and.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know how they are at the golf course. They're gonna keep an eye on
Yeah.
everything. So.
Oh, that's how they have it on their property.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. We haven't committed to that, but I'm committed to do it if they choose. That's what they want. So.
If Genesee Land Trust takes land and donation, that's one of the requirements. Taking it is to have that marked and signed.
Nice. Good. I would just say, just broadly, I like the footprint based on where the vegetation is. Nice to buffer communities from the road, great. I will buy space for them too, but curious if you have, you're leaving the drive open, is there anticipation of to expand on your end, or is that just possible in the future?
Well, that's part of the town requirements
Oh,
as well
got it.
as, that was something that KH Golf wanted
Got it.
also.
That's commonly the planning board wants to see future stubs as we're tying it to Lozano, have the future stuff there.
Thanks.
Have you given thought to what type of conservation easement? So there's 3 standard easement languages that most restrictive, least site specific. I guess my thought on the west wetland portion, most restrictive would probably be appropriate only because there is the wetland and the buffer, and kind of don't want any ambiguity there.
Yep.
I guess. Yeah, so the green space in the east of Brownsville Road. I guess probably would depend on what ends up happening with the Genesee Land Trust and or Victor Hiking. I will say that it's harder to change the conservation easement language after the fact.
Sure.
You may want to think through setting that up to contemplate future uses, be it allow for hiking or use. Is the thought that you would have that determined from the land trust or Victor hiking trails by the time this goes to final, or is that
Yes,
the intention?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I guess as it exists now, assuming that isn't gonna happen, I would recommend most restrictive for the wetlands and even for the steep slopes.
Yes.
But if something comes with the land trust and or the hiking trails, we can change that before final.
Yeah, on the Brownsville side where that rises up quick from Brownsville, but then there's a valley almost in the middle and then rises back up to where we want to build. There's a nice, beautiful meadow in there, so we're trying in the hiking trails and maybe even potentially a picnic area, that type of thing, in the open meadow. Love to get the trail down to the creek down there. It's beautiful, so like to get as close to to the creek as possible. So, for a hiking trail.
Okay. Are you bringing in your equipment? Are you planning on coming in following basically the roadways? Cause it's kind of landlocked, right? So you're gonna come right in that way. So you won't be disturbing really anything that you're not planning on.
We will not go through Ozano.
Yeah,
We're gonna come in off Brownsville and, go through all the way and. Correct, we have to run the sewer all the way through or? Yes, and so we have to run the sewer all the way through. Yeah, yeah. We're probably still constructing in 2 phases. Correct?
The homes, yes.
Yeah, the homes will be construction in 2 phases, but the sewer will run all the way through.
so
Still working.
where's phase one then?
The Brownsville entrance.
This would be phase one.
Yep, and then,
And then come over.
It's some timing for the project. How long?
I mean, from start to finish, we would love to be in construction mode on the subdivision by the spring of next year. And do pre-sales. We anticipate between 15 and 20 sales per year. Single family. I just don't wanna move too quickly, but.
And you kind of spoke to this earlier, you're utilizing the cluster provision.
Correct.
And maybe just what presumably, that allows you to fit in what you want to do on the kind of existing farm land versus utilizing some of the other areas that your general thought on why you're using that cluster. Yeah, I think that is what it's designed for, is to allows you to work among the existing geological land areas versus
Look at the yield.
Yeah.
Also allows us, the cost per lot goes down a little bit. The costs are astronomical now. You know, the construction is an entry level of over $500,000. Today, when just 10 years ago, just over 200 was entry level new construction. So, and I think, you know, things are changing. Customers don't want you know, an acre or maintaining an acre. Yeah, but they're out, you know, enjoying that open space. You know, you probably, when we're all done with this, I hope you could walk for an hour and a half and not cross the same path. And then being able to connect to Zano, really could walk into the village. You'd have to walk on the road a little bit, but you can walk into the village from there. So we're trying to connect all of that and make it a beautiful subdivision, but also fill the need that we have. Housing need.
Makes sense. Is this, I think this is something we'd want to do a sidewalk for. Imagine the planning board likely would. Yeah, that's fine, but,
Yeah, sure.
Always,
Yeah.
I'm always in favor of doing sidewalk for sure.
and it's tough to see, I drove by it, but it's tough to really see what's going on up there without.
Yeah.
without setting for this.
It's beautiful. Like we did it on Fridays. We're out there for an hour.
There were a bunch of comments that we reviewed that were planning board related. Address those now, I don't think we do, but it's like,
Maybe we did, we received a letter, you know, along with the planning board from some concerned residents.
Sure.
Some of who may be here.
Yep.
You know, majority of the concerns, you know, directed more towards the planning board, than the conservation board. You know, there were some that, they made mention of, you know, one of the concerns is increasing traffic on Zano Circle. Right, you know, made sense. You know, they had some thoughts of, you know, could there be two entrance and exits on the proposed parcel versus. You know, because I think naturally everyone, if you're going in the village, you're gonna cut down through Dono Circle, versus going down Brownsville and around. You know, any thoughts given there of having both an entrance and an exit on here, or did the steep slopes kind of preclude that from happening?
Yeah, if you could, it's a great plan to have up right there. As you can see, there's quite a significant ravine going through wooded area. In excess of 8 feet. Great change. Which, you know, would be development in the steep slopes with that. Sure that. 3 inch way, so it really is it would be a very significant cost to tackle all those hurdles,
Yeah.
prohibitively infeasible.
Yeah, I think from a conservation board perspective, you know, right now that area is not being touched. And that's our preference is to, you know, leave as much as the land untouched as possible. But that was a comment that. Yeah, so we wanted to just bring that up.
We proposed, we talked about previously a choke road there, kind of where it narrows down to one lane going into, but we're willing to listen to what the planning board.
And I think that's very much in their purview, and there's I think you guys are going June 9th,
Sounds about right.
maybe. So I'm sure there'll be a host of those comments.
The only other comment was on the road coming into Brownsville, that there would be significant grading eventually for that road, but I think that was addressed, so.
I assume that that's why you kind of have that jog out, is so it's not too steep.
Yes.
Or.
It's actually a primary reason for that is for sight distance. It's not safety to have it at that location. It could make it work going straight up, but it actually also just lends itself to being a nice entrance to the site.
Tried to depict it in one of the pictures here, you know, meandering in, going up the hill. And really no houses. So one of the beauties of the site is a little bit higher up, so you know, you really won't see anything from Brownsville. Island and separated with the trees and everything, so.
But that road will conform with all Tom Victor design guidelines.
You know, in general with the easements, I like, there's sort of continuity there. You know, there's not a million different bits all over the place. There's a few, don't get me wrong, but it's 3 large parcels. When you're generally making big easements, which we like to see. Large easements.
And even the one that's off to up against I-90, that's a little bit more narrow because there's a Tom Victor sewer that runs through that area, so it's for the town.
Any other comments from the board?
That's me.
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
Yeah,
Good.
And this will certainly. Come back before us, things are more final. We do have many town residents here, any questions or comments, concerns that there?
We're all from Sound Circle. We're here. Identify how it's not. Doing our neighborhood, it's how we feel. So I would love to explore the opportunity to have 2 entrances and have a emergency access road, just like the other neighborhood that's up the street. I mean, I live at the bottom of the street and I know tons of cars just like, it's the easiest path to the village is past my house. So, I think in the last board meeting, you said that only 70 more cars per day. It's if you have 70 houses, I leave my house 4 or 5 times a day, right? So you multiply that times 70 homes. A lot of people work from home these days, they go back and forth. I mean, I have little kids. Just, I would love to work with you and figure it out, and I think that's community consensus too. Right, it's all about making money and building great homes and so forth, right? But we also have great homes too. We invested in. I just wanna keep the investment up. So we have a nice tight community and that's what you wanna create too, which is great. We're all for that. St. John's Parkway, they love that there's no access to our community because people would cut through there too, right? And we love that there's no access to our community, so it works great. We're still go over through the path on our golf carts or whatever. To celebrate the community. That's kind of what we're. Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I will, I think, certainly, valid concerns, on June 9th, the planning board will have, a forum to hear a lot of these comments and concerns.
It's tricky and from our perspective, town has certain conservation kind of principles that we need to abide by. But a lot, reading through your letters was understandable. That's good.
and again, I agree with serving as much green space as possible. That's great. That's why we live out here in Victor. It's like farmland out here.
Yeah,
Right, so I get your stance on the board and what the design of it is, but the effect that it's gonna have on our community. I mean, I would like to explore different options,
alternative.
if there's possibly like maybe even a bridge of some sort, it's going over the green space instead of plowing through it, because there's such a big, I don't know, again, that's money, right? So,
I think that makes it tricky too, is that stub was there and it's going to be there on
yeah,
that north end, which appears to be a town. road thing, Which
then
doesn't make much sense to
then
me,
again,
but
Well, I
regardless,
think that
if,
they wanted it to be visible that,
there's opportunity.
yeah, this is likely to happen.
Yeah.
and then if future communities keep adding on, the quickest way to the village, straight shots
Yeah.
through our neighborhood. So I mean, like you have, I don't know, with the new design of 70 homes or whatever, this model is different than the other one, Cape Lake, sorry about that. But, you add, let's say it's 70 homes, and you add another 70 homes, another 70 homes, you keep building, without creating more entrances off of Brownsville, forcing traffic to go around. Brownsville's already dangerous road. People breaking down at 55, 75 miles per hour.
We will be further along, as we get closer to that June 9th, and I'd be happy to give you guys an opportunity to come into our office and we can explain to you, seeing what we have going on, so, cause when you get to the planning board meeting, you're gonna get 3 or 5 minutes. I'm happy to sit with you and talk to you and do what we can to try and accommodate and talk to you a little bit. It doesn't mean I can change everything or accommodate, but I can answer questions for you and talk to you about resolution.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we'd like happy to do that. I can see it right now. There's almost all the residents on Zona Circle. Keep fighting. Although it's up to the planning board, it's not up to us, not up to you. It's whatever they decide.
Yeah.
But we're gonna keep fighting just because, of course, it's gonna impact us significantly. So, and I would rather work with you than fight with you.
Yeah. And we're happy to explain and listen to you and potential solutions.
Yeah, and from an engineering standpoint, these guys been on me to, provide some engineering solutions to some of those concerns. Shrinking down the road which helps slow down people, which may have them go down to Brownsville instead if they feel it's a slower drive through the neighborhood. Get to Brownsville Road quicker. Like was mentioned, we had proposed a choker. One point down to one lane. Ideas to
We could show you, can drive by one we did.
Significant like speed bumps, something that, to slow them down even more and think, I don't wanna go that way.
I think Choker Road's great. I can show it to you. You can drive through our Honey Falls neighborhood, and we have one there, because we connected to Pride Street and the same concern. And it does minimize the traffic. Most of the people will go out the main entrance. Where if you're going to Eastview Mall, you wanna go probably the other way. You wouldn't go through Victory, you'd go up. Cause our
Rather than
office.
go Brownsville.
Yeah, go Brownsville. But going in the village, going to the school, what you wanna try and do is get them to go out the main entrance that we're gonna create. And so we can explain to you, and it's up to the planning board.
Right, yeah.
So
So that's a planning board discussion. Conservation board.
Yep.
No, but no,
Good.
or it's helpful to have the conversation 2, 3, 4 times. Certainly.
We have a few questions that I think are part of this work. So this development is potentially gonna go all the way to the freeway at some point. Is there any anticipated change in noise levels to existing residents?
We don't have anything in writing about the next section. That stub road is the stub road because the town wants it. But we have no contract for anything beyond that. And the
It's kind of a real promise.
well, I mean, I would love to add a few if we could, but the Rays don't want to sell it. They use it for hunting, shooting, that, so, and they're very particular about what they like to do with their land back there, so. But it could happen, yes, that's what the stub road's all about. But I mean, we can even give an idea, there's not a huge space back there because it is all conservation on that, on the map there, so I can't see more than.
And part of this development is limiting property closest to I-90's development rights, so we're taking some of the development rights. Part of that,
So we're stripping the land of the opportunity to build houses.
they can't just blanket more lots, it's all limited by the town overlay districts.
Retention ponds, is the purpose of that to catch all water off of the subdivision?
It is, the purpose of those ponds is to catch runoff from new impervious pavements, houses, and retain it in a way that releases it at a rate no greater than what was.
I'm only asking because on Brownsville, it'll mud out when it rains heavy. It'll actually come across the culvert, it'll flood the road. We've had it in the past for the last few years. So I was just asking if there's gonna be any more runoff beyond what's already there naturally.
It would not be in excess of what is there naturally. So we model existing conditions and then we model the proposed to be attenuated by those ponds so that it's no greater than existing condition. So it holds that water and then releases it at a slower rate.
Where would the outflow of those types of ponds be?
They would be on the downhill side of the pond and discharge to those two beams that.
So it'd be skipping a bunch of permeable soil, potentially to this point. Or worse, cooling from down that mountain.
No, so this would release the peak runoff at a slower rate. So detaining the water and then at a slower rate.
Like skipping a bunch of permeables.
The water will run over the same. Same path.
If I dump a bucket of water in the grass at the top of the hill, it's not gonna make the road. If I dump it on my driveway, it's gonna make it down.
Yeah, but these catch it coming off of the, I'm sorry to speak, it's running off from these homes into here. Now it just comes straight down. It's running into here, then this is supposed to slow it down to some rate and only release it slowly, so.
So it won't be like all the way to Culver, it'll
It's
go
not
across
being-
that ground. From the hole. Sounds good. Okay.
Along those lines, is that gonna change the hydraulic analysis for our neighborhood at all, where we have retention ponds and, you know, them overflowing and them drying up is either of those are acceptable things. So if they dry up, that's gonna create other issues. As far as swamps and
Most of this site drains away from the Azana.
you mentioned the 50-foot easement between two neighborhoods. Then you said there was already a 50-foot, so it's gonna be a 50-foot easement of trees or 100-foot?
100 feet between the two, right? Because there's 50 existing on Azano Circle and you're adding 50 to Overrise, so it'd be 100-foot strip.
So 50 feet is already on the residents that live on us on border. And then we're adding 50.
Okay.
Because in one of the last meetings that we had, I said that there wasn't much of a tree line there and I was mistaken. One of the neighbors let me know that. So we walked back out there and looked at the trees and the brush that's in between and then increased that to 50 feet so that we could capture almost all of the trees and brush that's back.
Thanks for clarifying that. Kept talking about a golf course taking over, but that land is ordered by two different golf courses, right?
Well, we're speaking about Ravenwood, which is Ravenwood is what you see as RKH Golf.
I thought you were talking about some of the lots east of Brown Hill. So being,
They own that property too.
It's right next
They
to
own
the
the
other
Winding
golf
Creek.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, so they own Winding Creek too.
No, I don't know who did it. So I don't, yeah, this is all land separate from that golf, from Winding Creek.
Just a little. And that.
It goes up to the creek. Do you know how the creek runs through there?
Yeah.
So they
The
own
golf
up
course
to
is
the
on there.
creek. Yeah, but you know where the bridge is for when you play that course?
Yeah.
That's kind of their boundary right there. It stops right there for Winding Creek. And everything's towards the thruway, RKH, and we know.
Yeah, that's on its
To the
own.
middle of Winding.
Yes. It's actually,
Yes, he just passed away a little bit. or something.
well,
Cause it was all part of the other section.
so 973 came with the parcel we bought.
Mhm.
That Donna actually, she hasn't passed, we just purchased. the
Oh,
land.
I
She
thought she
moved
had,
that house
oh.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they own from all here, all the way back almost to the throughway.
They're gonna probably own just to somewhere in this range right here, and the rest is gonna be conservation. And if it goes to the Genesee Land Trust, that farmed piece, they'll probably just do wildflowers is what they're saying. They don't wanna continue to farm it. If we privately own it, it might continue to be farmed.
One more question. I heard there was contaminated soil or there was chemicals left on this land from previous owner. Is that true? That's the.
Tank or something.
I think we've checked we've done a phase 1. We're still doing some soil tests.
Frank Franti is the developer that bought Azano Circle.
Yep.
Frank didn't wanna buy that land, because it was contaminated. Clear the soil up top would be too much, but I think what he was talking about is up in the conservation area, up to the east.
Okay.
That's all I heard. Yeah, I don't know for any facts, so.
Other thoughts, comments?
No, appreciate it, Stick.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, everyone. David, anything? Okay, so we'll give our comments up to the planning board. They'll certainly want to do a site walk. And then certainly about you guys to attend the June 9th planning board meeting and get your comments, and we'd like to take Morel up on their offer of having decisions before or after, certainly about to do as well. We have some other agenda items you guys are welcome to stay for, or be offended if you wish to leave. Did have the approval of the May 5th, 2026 meeting minutes, those were distributed beforehand. Yes. And
You guys viewed them and I didn't have any comments. They were fine by me. Thanks, guys.
I reviewed, I would make them.
I will second to do motion to.
all in favor?
Pat made the motion,
Matt
Matt second.
first, Matt second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May 5th meeting minutes are approved. We also did want to discuss mandatory training dates. This was just for the board, not related to anything in specific, but just kind of foundational training.
Yes.
You know, how to read the town code, how to interpret some of the maps and things that we're given. You know, how we should, you know, what authorities do we have, what limits do we have? Just kind of real fundamental, which I thought was a good idea.
Sure.
Our thought was to kind of take over a existing minutes or meeting time for the conservation board. It would need for all members to be in attendance. So we don't have all members here.
Right.
So we'll just circulate, try to come up with a time that works for all five.
We may have to push it for Andrew's,
Yeah, he
At
said
least
he
for
was
us.
through June. The 2 dates in July don't work for me. So now maybe we're looking at August. But either way, I think that's a good idea.
Sure.
To have that
Yeah.
training.
definitely.
We'll discuss that offline, I guess, and kind of setting that time.
Sounds good.
Anything else from the public? No, we're good,
Thank you very, very much, Chris.
Of course.
welcome.
For a
Okay,
motion then?
sure, I'll make.
I'll make a motion to
for
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
Second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right, the meeting is adjourned at 7:22. Yes, that might be.
Yeah, what were you trying to protect?